All right, so this is part two of the home buyer consultation. Part one was about sitting down with the application, confirming information that you would have received on the phone, and then you meet the person in person at your office. And we talked about a little bit about the house and really kind of digging deep. And so now what we're going to talk about is the second part of the appointment. And this is the opportunity for you to educate and really kind of like separate yourself from a lot of people. I should say all of our real estate agents. So what I like to talk about is a part two. And typically what I do, for some reason, I don't know why I do this, I just do it, is I'll take a scratch paper. I'll take like paper out of nowhere and start handwriting this as I'm explaining it to them. Almost like I'm doing it for the first time. And typically what happens is that when I finish the appointment, they'll ask me for that copy, for that piece of paper. Okay. And I'll sign it and everything. All right, so what I'm talking about is what happens when you go under contract. Okay? So I'm explaining to them, we just got done talking about a house, what they want, what's important to them, price range, what kind of payment. And I'm even taking some of that information that they gave me previously and using it in this example. So let's say it's $300K. Let's say they want to be a payment of $2,300 a month, right? And I'm even taking a 3-2 house that they talked about with a beautiful kitchen in the backyard, right? So what I'm doing is I'm applying a real life situation into this process, right? So what I'm saying to them is like, okay guys, now that I've gotten to understand a lot about what you're looking for and what's important to you, and we understand each other, I want to really talk to you about what happens when we do find that house, because we are going to find that house, right? And the reason why I want to explain this to you guys and educate you on this is because I don't want you to be caught off guard. Because what happens is that there's an exchange of money, there's risks involved, and I want to strategize with you in advance so that you can understand what it means to you, okay? And typically, this is what I do. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be talking about some of the things that need to occur when there's a contract in place, okay? And what I typically do is I'll write down some of the things, and then I'm going to explain to them how that process is different when they're looking at resale versus brand new. Because I'm a big advocate on selling brand new houses, right? And when they understand that the process is a little bit different, they start kind of getting a sense of the direction that they want to go in. Also, within this presentation, on this part of the consultation, you start talking about things that lead you to talk about market conditions and what the reality is of everything. Okay? All right, so this is what happens. You know what, let me do this here. I might need this space. It's gonna get a little messy. I'm gonna put 300 over here. Hopefully you guys can see it on the screen. 300K. Okay. 2,300 a month for payment is what they want, and it's a 3-2. Okay. You see that fit in the screen? Kind of does. Okay. So here's what we're doing. We're saying, okay. So here's Nicole. You're the buyer. Nicole. So now that we talked about this house that you're looking for. What I want to do now is really talk to you about this process, about what happens when you go under contract. And I want to explain to you what happens if you're looking at a resale home versus a brand new home. Because I think that you and we should keep our options open, right? We should really think about understanding what's going to be the best thing for you when it's all said and done. Okay? So what happens is that when you get under contract, Nicole, I'm going to make a phone call to you. And I'm going to say, congratulations, they've given us this home, right? And I'm going to say to you, listen, the very first thing that we need to do is we need to make a deposit, okay? And I want to explain to you what this means to you. What is a deposit, okay? And for the state of Florida, it could be deposit, it could be earnest money. I even take the time to really explain to them that terminology, right? Because there's so many words thrown around in this process, and it's the first time they're hearing it. So I'll say, listen, it's a deposit. And Nicole, what this is from a resale perspective is, or I should say previously loved home, because one of my past clients looked at that, previously loved home, okay? On a previously loved home. This is important to the seller, Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why it's important to the seller is because they are taking the property off the market with the expectation that you're gonna do things in a timely manner, do your diligence, do the inspection, get approved, and close on time. So this is you putting your money where your mouth is in terms of your level of seriousness. Because believe it or not, Nicole, there's a lot of buyers that back out for some odd reason sometimes, with no good reason. They just back out to back out. Okay? So what I want you to know is that the standard in our market here in Tampa Bay is that we're typically looking for 1% of the purchase price. Okay? And I want you to know that this can change. This can be different, right? During the COVID years, the pandemic years, as things were getting very competitive, I was telling people 2% of the purchase price. So you really got to navigate this conversation according to what's going on in the market. Now the 2% was really like out of the blue, right? For the longest time, I was telling people 1%, right? For years and years, right?
Right.
So Nicole, I'm not sure if you're good with math, Nicole, but what's 1% of 300K? You want a $300,000 house, Nicole, so 1% of that would be how much? $3,000, okay? So Nicole, you're gonna need $3,000, and let's just say hypothetically, Nicole, I called you today. Today is Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Now, in the state of Florida, Nicole, this deposit money has to be deposited with the title company in the matter of 3 business days. Nicole, what that means to you is that we need to have the deposit money at the title company by 5 p.m. Monday. Because it's Wednesday today.
Gotcha.
I just let you know. So Thursday is the first day, Friday's the second day, Monday's the third day. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's important for you to understand that, Nicole, because I want you to understand what it means if you don't do it on time. If you do not do it on time, Nicole, the seller can look at you as being a flaky buyer. And they may want to back out and not sell it to you anymore.
Mm.
Now, Nicole, I know what you're thinking. You're asking me, why would they do that? It's a possibility, Nicole, that they would have received other offers after they made a decision to accept yours. But they couldn't commit to the other people because they've already agreed to sell it to you.
Right.
So they're probably looking for a way out, and this is their way out. Or I should say, one of the ways out. Now, Nicole, as a buyer, do you understand why this would be important to a seller?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you and I are on the same page about that, because timing is of an essence, okay? And I'm gonna go off script for a second. One of the things in our consultation is that, especially if we run as a team, this is the opportunity for us to talk about our team a little bit. And actually throughout this whole presentation, you might find me kind of like stepping away from explaining this to a buyer,
Mm-hmm.
and finding gaps in between to talk about our team members. Nicole, typically some of the questions that come up as a buyer, they would say, where do I make this deposit to? How do I do it? When do I do it? All that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say to you, Nicole, those are great questions. And I want you to know something first of all, so that you can get a little bit of comfort in this, okay?
Okay.
Thankfully, it's just not me running this business. You're gonna have a group of people helping you. And all these people we run as a team, everybody is a specialist in what they do. There is gonna be a person, Nicole, by the name of Wendy. She operates in the back support of things. Her title is a transaction coordinator. And as soon as I make that phone call to you, you will either hear from her the same day or the following morning. And she's gonna give you specific instructions of where you need to go to make the deposit money.
Okay.
And if it's convenient for you, we can also get the wire instructions. And Wendy, our team member, will take care of getting those wire instructions for you as well. The reason we do that, Nicole, is because we wanna make sure we don't drop the ball on you, and we always wanna make sure that you're having a smooth experience. This is why we have different specialists in the things we do, okay? Now, if you remember, Nicole, what we were talking about before about the house, the type of house you like, and you remember I asked you, what are the best days for you to look at houses? You said anytime during the week, but mostly Saturdays and Sundays. And I shared with you that typically, me personally, I'm not available on Sundays. I take that day off. But our team member, Joe Schmo, is a showing specialist, and you will always have somebody available to you.
Okay.
So now I've explained to you the value of our team and why you want to do business with us.
Right.
And I'm telling you, hey, this is Joe Schmo, this is what his job is, this role is in everything. This is my role in everything, and this is Wendy, this is her role in everything. Now, what's happening is that we're explaining this to people, and now all of a sudden, these names on the team is starting to really kind of reveal itself as to what the actual value is to dealing with a team that operates in their specialties of their field to provide a proper experience. Okay. So the deposit money, that's how that gets done. Now, Nicole, now that we're talking about deposit money, and now that you understand that it takes 3 business days, once I tell you that it's offers accepted, on a new home, they operate a little bit differently. Okay? So what's gonna happen, Nicole, is that you and I are gonna look at a lot of resale homes, and maybe the same day we'll go look at a new home, just to really help you discover what's important for you. Okay? So Nicole, we'll go to a new home, and let's say we go to this new home, we'll get in there, we'll start looking at some of the houses, and let's say we take a company like D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton has a sales rep, and they represent D.R. Horton, and they're gonna help us find a house. We're gonna find this house, and then once you do find a house that you just fall in love with, we're gonna sit down with them. And one of the very first things they're gonna wanna ask you, if you're ready to proceed with that, is they're gonna ask you, first of all, if you wanna get pre-approved with their in-house lender. And once you get the good news, the green light, then they're gonna ask you if you have the deposit money. Because the reason why that's important to the salesperson is that they can't take that house off the market unless they collect that deposit money. What sometimes can happen, Nicole, in these builders is that you have 2 or 3 salespeople in their model homes. And sometimes they're racing and competing versus their coworkers. Because the coworker might be in an office with another family who loves the exact same house that you do, with the same lot. And if we're not prepared to provide that deposit money, that other family can take that house from you. So again, timing is of an essence, and they typically want to have that money the same day. So if you say, yes, I want to move forward, the question becomes, what method of payment can they accept?
Okay.
Some of these builders take debit cards now, but most of the time they wanted a cashier's check. Now, I want to let you know that builders, when it comes to deposit money, they all operate a little bit differently. Some are flexible with deposit money and some aren't. I do want you to prepare you that it could be $3,000, but be prepared that it can go up to $10,000. Okay? It can vary, and I want you to know that you'll know this information before any decision is made. Okay? And what I'm telling them there, guys, is that I'm telling them that, listen, I'm not gonna put you in a situation without you knowing all the information first. But I do wanna prepare you that after today, when you go home and you're discussing it with your wife or whoever you're discussing it with, that if the new home was something you were looking towards anyways, be prepared with this money. Why am I saying this? Because if they go home, they might say the next day to me, Jose, we want to be a little bit prepared for this process. And your consultation was super helpful yesterday. We want to make sure we're putting away a little bit more money.
Okay.
See? Okay. All right, so now that we discussed the deposit money part of it, and in terms of what it means to you when it comes to resale versus new, let's talk about the second thing that happens. The second thing that happens is you're gonna have the ability to do a home inspection. Okay? And this also is something that varies depending on the market and the seasons of the market. So typically, I will tell somebody that they'll have anywhere from 7 to 10 calendar days, not business days, but calendar days. In summer markets where things are busy and you have competition, you want to be aggressive, you want to say 7 days. But when things are slower, you can say 10 days. You really got to just play it by ear. Okay? And again, at this point, I'm reminding them that Wendy, the transaction coordinator, is going to help them coordinate this part of the process so that they don't feel like they're by themselves. They don't feel like they can't get a hold of Jose because he's out showing houses. I want them to know that they always have somebody to communicate with. Okay? They'll say to me, Jose, how much is it? And I'll say to them, listen, I'm gonna give you a rough estimate, but I want you to know it really varies based on the company. And I also want you to know that you can choose whatever company you want, or you can use one of our recommendations, some of the inspectors that we use. And a lot of times what I'll tell them is, hey, even if I recommend you an inspector, I want you to know they don't work for me, they work for you, because you're the one paying. The other thing that I'm telling them, and I'm emphasizing over and over, is that timing is of an essence. I'm encouraging them to know who they want to choose before we even go under contract. And I'll say to them, like, listen, when this offer is accepted, it's super important for us to put the order in right away, because I want you to know, inspectors, they just won't go out there the next day. We have to figure out what's the best day for their calendar. And this is something that Wendy's gonna help out with, right? But not only is it, we have to figure out the schedule for the inspector, but we have to figure out the schedule for you as the buyer, should you wanna be at the inspection. And then number 3, if a home is occupied by a seller, we also need to make sure that it's okay with them. And so we have to consider all these variables, Nicole, in coordinating the inspection. Not only that, we want to make sure that the inspection can be performed and that we can get the report back. Because you and I need to see this report and make a decision if we're going to move forward or not before the 7 or 10 calendar days is up. Why do you think it's important for us to communicate and have that report before this time is up?
Because time is of the essence.
Time is of the essence, but you want to know what else is important?
What?
If you and I don't communicate, and I don't communicate with the other realtor who represents the seller in writing, that you're not moving forward or what your intentions are, I'm putting your deposit money at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say hypothetically, we've told the seller at the time of offer that we're gonna do the inspection and give them our intentions
Right.
on that 7th day or before. And for some reason, maybe I'm in Disneyland, right? Maybe I'm a part-time realtor
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't communicate well. Or maybe you got super busy.
Right.
And then on the 8th day, you tell me, Jose, I'm not gonna move forward. If I communicate with the other agent and I tell them you're not gonna move forward, they'll say, that's okay, you don't have to, but we're taking your deposit money,
Wow.
okay? This is why we're not part-time agents. This is why we have specialists in our team.
Right.
You see what I'm doing there?
Yes.
I'm building value in our team. I'm also telling them, make sure your agents, even if you don't work with us, make sure it's not a part-time agent. Because there could be a lack of focus where people can drop the ball. So the ideal cost, so that you know, is anywhere between $500 and $700. And I want you to know, Nicole, that in the state of Florida, and you guys make sure that whatever state you're in, figure out if it's a requirement or not. In the state of Florida, it's actually optional to do a home inspection. But I'm gonna highly recommend that you do it. I'm gonna highly recommend it so much that if you tell me that you don't wanna do it, I'm probably gonna have you sign a form that says, I told you to do it, and you decided not to, which I'll be okay with, and I'm not gonna judge you, but I need to protect myself to know that I communicated that to you. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nicole, you as a buyer,
Mm-hmm.
on this beautiful home that you found with the right payment of $2,300, would you want to do a home inspection on a new home?
On a new home?
Yes.
Me as a buyer?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good answer. Because a lot of people don't do them. Okay?
Because you don't know if the builder could have gone wrong somewhere.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to explain to you a few things. Number one, again, it's optional. You don't have to do it. If you don't do it, I'm not going to judge you. I'm totally going to understand. Maybe you want to save that money. It's up to you. Okay? But I do want you to know that builders make mistakes.
Right.
No one's perfect. Sometimes it's done unintentionally. Workers could be leaving the work site and step on something and not know that they stepped on something and totally messed everything up. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever Googled different builders online and saw all of those complaints?
Yes.
It's very rare that any of those complaints say that they did an inspection. Most of them just complain, and it's true complaints, but it's because they didn't do the diligence. Maybe because someone didn't guide them right. Maybe sometimes the buyer went directly with the builder, who had a sales rep with a friendly face, with the ability to help them, but no loyalty to help them.
Right.
So sometimes what happens, guys, or what happens, buyer, Nicole,
Mm-hmm.
is that a buyer will go in unexpectedly with no plan at all to buy a home. They just want to look at the model home. Then they find themselves looking at a house and they find a house.
Mm-hmm.
And they step in there without the realtor. And you ask the person, the sales rep that represents the builder, hey, should I do a home inspection? They're not going to say no to you, and they're not going to say yes. What they will say is something to this degree. You can do a home inspection if you like, Nicole, but I do want you to know that our building phases involves the city, the county, and all these additional inspectors. And it's not that it's not true, it's more than likely true, but it doesn't mean that there's not a mistake that can be made. So you need to have somebody always looking out for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So with that said, I would encourage you to do a home inspection with a new home. And if you like, you can actually do it depending if you find a new home that's being built in different phases, you can actually do a home inspection from the time they pour out the slab to the time they put the frame up, to the time they put the drywall. You can actually do it in different stages.
Oh, wow.
Now, it does get a little pricey, and it depends on the inspector you're using,
Mhm.
but I want to let you know that you have the ability to do that in case you decide to do that later,
Okay.
okay? You don't have to, but it's up to you if you want more peace of mind. Okay? Are you following me so far, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, so,
And I like how whenever you're saying it also, you're pointing it out to like, oh, like you don't have to go with me, but I just want you to know, like, warning them on if they do decide to go with another agent, just
Right.
planting that doubt in their brain
correct.
is really good because at the end of the day, during this buyer's consultation, you want them
The sign.
to sign,
Correct.
exactly, so that's good.
And it's like, it's funny because I'm doing the consultation and I'm like, it might sound arrogant, but I know you're gonna go with me.
Right,
Why? Because usually the first person they meet is the person they go with.
right. As long as they did a thorough enough job.
Yes. Secondly, most real estate agents don't do consultations like this, or at all,
True. That is very true.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Third, exactly what you said, I'm like almost letting them know, hey, I haven't asked for a proposal from you yet. I haven't asked you to put a ring on it.
Right.
I'm not even assuming that you're my client. But I know you're gonna be my client when I'm done.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But I'm not forcing the issue. I'm not saying, hey, you need to buy right now. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just educating.
Right.
But while I'm educating, I'm separating myself from the pack, is what I'm doing.
Right. That's good.
I'm also revealing again more information about the process, preparing them, and guess what? How do you think I'm making them feel right now?
Safe.
Safe. Perfect word.
Secured.
Perfect word. I always tell people, make people feel like a security blanket. Be the security blanket that people need.
Right.
Always reassure them of that throughout the whole process.
Reassure them.
And they're just like, wow, I feel safer with Jose. I've never had anyone explain this to me the way you did.
That makes sense.
Some of this information goes over their head. They won't even remember a lot of this. But they will remember how I made them feel.
Right.
They will remember that when I'm out in the field showing them houses, how I made them feel before, so that when I'm repeating some of the information out on the field, hey, Nicole, I know you love this house, but remember I was telling you about the other day when we met in person about me trying to help you minimize risk
Mm-hmm.
and the whole home inspection part of it?
Right.
Well, if you do this home inspection, this right here, that's a possibility they can flag that. Whatever the example is. And now, anything that I'm saying to them is like, yeah, I believe you, Jose,
Right.
because I remember the way you made me feel.
It's just building that,
Connection.
yeah, the connection and another word for it. I just can't think of it right now.
Rapport.
Yes.
Yeah.
The rapport
Okay.
and trust.
Now, what happens, Nicole, is that once the home inspection is done, and you and I have peace of mind that everything is moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
what I typically like to do in my process and the way I help people, assuming that we're moving along with good time, is then what happens is that you're gonna have the appraisal order. And the appraisal, I'll go into detail what the appraisal is, because a lot of people will be mistaken with what the home inspection is versus what the appraisal is. You gotta go into you gotta slow it down, go by their pace, how they're processing information, right? Like sometimes I'll speed up my consultations based on how I see somebody processing the information. But I will also slow it down. I won't assume to go fast. I always, if anything, I start slow. And then I speed up according to how I'm seeing the person process the information. Because I don't want to bore them.
Right.
But I'm not going to assume that they know. So I'm going to say to them, the appraiser does this and this and that. Their main job is for this to happen to protect you from this. Okay? And they'll say, how much does this cost? I'll say, well, it depends on the lender. It can run anywhere from $550 to $650, right? And I'll say to them, typically, Nicole, I will have you move forward with this. The lender is first of all the one responsible for ordering this. Typically, what I like to do, Nicole, is once you and I have peace of mind that we're moving forward from the inspection, then we can give your lender the go-ahead to order the appraisal. The reason I like to do that, Nicole, is because once you spend money in the appraisal, it's gone. You're never going to see it again. And you've just got done spending money on the inspection, and that's gone. You're never going to see that again. It doesn't matter if you're moving forward with the house or not, you're just not going to see it again.
Right.
So what happens here, this is our opportunity. They may initiate the questions, or you may bring it up to them to further showcase your value. This, in the beginning, if you don't have enough customer testimonials, you can start with the basics of it and then give them an actual experience. But if you don't have the customer experience, you can say, listen, on each two of these things, this is where problems can occur. And this is where questions come up. Jose, if the inspection doesn't come out to my satisfaction, what can happen? And I'll say to them, well, there's multiple things that can happen. Number one, we cannot move forward. I want you to know your inspection money, you're not going to get refunded. That's gone. But you'll get your deposit money back. As long as we communicate on a timely fashion with the seller's agent. I said number two, there's a possibility we can ask for repairs. This is the time where I set the expectation to them.
Right.
I'll say to them, if you do ask for repairs, I will review it with you. Ultimately, you're the one that's going to make the decision. What I tell a lot of my clients, Nicole, as the buyer, is to focus on the major items on a house. And what I mean by that, Nicole, is I mean the roof, the plumbing, the electrical stuff, the water heater. If you're talking about paint or a few loose wires or whatever it is, I wouldn't even bother with that. I'm already planting in their seed that when you're looking at these houses, and if we get into a situation of negotiating, do me a favor, don't bring it up if it has anything to do with being minimal in terms of items to be repaired.
Okay.
So if you see the report, don't tell me you don't like the bedroom because it's pink and you want to paint it yellow.
Gotcha.
I'm going to say, I'm going to minimize that request.
And you make it clear to them during the buyer's consultation
Yes.
about these repairs.
This is where I plant the seed
Okay.
for the
Gotcha.
first time.
So, can you say that again? How you would say it to the buyer?
Sure. I would say, at the time of the inspection, you and I are going to go over the report, Nicole.
Okay.
And here's the advice I'm going to give you so that you have the best experience for yourself to make sure that you get the house that you need. There could be things that come up on the report. It is the home inspector's job to find things. They could be minimal, but they need to put something on a report for you.
Gotcha.
My advice to you is, if there's anything that will concern you, you should focus on the big major components of the results, like the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, right? Things that really cost lots and lots of money. Things that are minimal are examples such as paint, few loose wires, minimal things.
Gotcha.
And I know sometimes, Nicole, that we don't always know what's major and what's minimal, and that's why we're going to go over it together. And we can make those requests, and I want you to know, Nicole, that the seller can say no, because we don't know what their circumstances. They may not have the financial means to make any repairs. The sellers could be going through a divorce. We don't know what the situation is.
Okay.
If for some reason they say no, that's okay, because you don't have to proceed. Or you can, completely up to you. At the end of the day, whatever you decide, as long as we tell them in writing, we get protected deposit money. And I want you to know, Nicole, my job in all this, and the reason why I operate as a team and why I have a salaried team, is to protect your deposit money. Your deposit money is like my deposit money. It's my money. And I'm not gonna lose my money.
I like that.
Okay? So I probably got some brownie points with them saying that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next question that might come up, they might say, well, Jose, can we reduce the price of the house should they not make any repairs? We absolutely can. And they may agree to it, or they may not. Okay? So, again, number 2 and number 3 is the opportunity to talk about different circumstances.
Okay.
Questions will come up. And you may, as a real estate agent, you may not know the answers to everything. And that's okay.
What do you say when you don't know the answer to something? Do you just like straight up, I don't know what to tell you?
What would you normally tell somebody if you don't know if you're by yourself and I'm not around, and somebody asks you a question?
I'll probably be like, well, I don't know the answer now, but I can let you know later. So it'll be like that.
Yeah, and make sure you tell them.
Okay.
And I'm saying it like that for you guys on this video because there's a lot of people that run as single agents with no guidance. I mean, I guess you could say some of us even run in teams with no guidance, right? But this, Nicole, is the idea of like having repetitions and having me by your side. This is why I say the repetitions over the course of a year, 2 years, is what makes the agent. The same thing with the appraisal. This is an opportunity where people are going to ask you, what happens if appraisal is lower? What happens if appraisal is higher?
Okay.
If you bought a house for $300K and it appraises lower, Nicole, I have to renegotiate this thing, and there's no guarantee that they're going to accept that. If it appraises for $290, Nicole, we have a problem. Because the lender is not going to borrow you $300K. But they will borrow you $290K. So I have to go to the seller's agent and tell them that we have a problem. They will either tell us that they can't accept the offer at $290. They will tell us to either pay it out of pocket, or they'll say, I'll meet you in the middle. Or they might even say, I'm going to cover the difference. So different circumstances can come up, and there's opportunities there to educate. And what's happening right now is that I'm putting them in real life situations right now. Before we've invested our emotions, our time in showing houses. And again, I'm making them feel safe. This is also another opportunity to talk about market conditions. Jose, do you think that can happen in this market the way what's going on right now? It's a possibility. I do want you to know that me, as the experienced professional helping you out, Nicole, is that before you make an offer, I'm gonna look to see what are the chances of this actually happening, of the home actually not appraising. I can never guarantee you that it's gonna happen or not gonna happen, but I can definitely tell you in my experience what the risk level is.
Okay.
See, Nicole, my job, me as the specialist, as the team leader, as the doctor in this team, is to understand where there's risk and when there's not risk. and to communicate it to you so that you can make a decision. You see, you're gonna find the perfect house for yourself. My job is to look at that perfect house and tell you when there's risk and when there's not risk.
Gotcha.
Now, Nicole, what happens if there's no agreement in the appraisal? No, I just want to let you know that this money here, I might even do it like this. This is gone. This is gone. No one's going to pay that. You're about $1,000 to $1,200 in. You're not getting that money back.
Right.
But your deposit money you can get back. And most of the time, people will pause there. And they'll take a big gulp. Okay? And I'll tell them it's the same process with brand new houses. And then sometimes I'll jokingly tell them, are you scared yet? Right? People will cross their arms. You know, their minds right now are just like, wow. And I'll say to them, I know. This is why I wanted to sit down with you today, Nicole, because I figured that this was going to be a value to you. Is this a value to you so far?
Yes.
I'm so happy that you showed up, that we were able to do this together. You know what the thing that we need to kind of take in consideration here, Nicole, as you as being the buyer, is it's okay to back out if we need to. Because it may not be the house for you.
Mm-hmm.
I do want you to know, though, that if we continue looking for a house, you're going to have to go through this process again. You're going to have to invest money again for a home inspection, for an appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you have the experience of a bad report on the inspection. You're going to want to protect yourself again.
Right.
And I just want to ask you, would you be ready to do that?
Most people aren't, so no, I'm not ready.
They're not. Why?
Because they're not prepared for the home inspection or appraisal and additional costs. Most people aren't
Financially.
ready. Right, financially.
They're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they are, sometimes they won't. But at the end of the day, I'm asking them because they're going to say to me, I mean, I got the money, but I don't want to spend the money again.
Right.
And I'll say to them, you know what? You know what the cool thing is, Nicole?
Mm-hmm.
Is that new homes, when you do an inspection and something comes up, they'll fix it right away. No questions asked. Because it's a brand new home.
That's good.
And they're not going to give you a property where you're not satisfied. And it's covered by warranties. The appraisal on a new home, can that happen? It can happen for sure. It can. But we've minimized the risk. Looking at new, if you and I find out, Nicole, that new was something that was to your liking, I want you to know that you can take a little bit more comfort that there's minimal risk because of this.
Okay.
So you don't have to go spending money again on another house to do the inspection and the appraisal and stuff like that. Or I should say there's a minimum, it's minimized.
Okay.
Okay? This is the time, sometimes it happens at the end. Actually, I'm gonna wait till the end to share this with you guys. The next thing that I want you to be considered about is that there's closing costs involved. Okay? In the offer, in your contract, we may have asked the seller to pay for closing costs or maybe not. They may have accepted, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to prepare you that this is another set of expense, aside from your down payment, which is different. This is what closing costs are. People sometimes will ask us, what is this for? And I'll say to them, well, this is a set of expenses from the lender, the title company, Florida taxes, deeds, stamps, etc., etc. And I'll give them a number. I'll say for resale, it's about 3% of the purchase price. So this $300,000 house that you like, Nicole, this is about $9,000. So when we're making an offer and you're asking me, what should I offer? Every circumstance is going to be different. I want you to know that if I ask the seller for this money, they may not like that.
Right.
Especially if you're asking them to reduce the purchase list price and you're asking for closing costs.
Right.
Okay? So I can't guarantee you that the seller will pay this over time. Every circumstance will be different.
Mm-hmm.
Now you and I talked about how much you need for a down payment. Let's say it's $12K. Now you have an understanding that you need some of this money here, and you might need another $9K. I just want to, will you be prepared with this, Nicole?
Yes.
And if you're not, it's okay. I'm just asking now that we're in a such scenario, okay? I just want to let you know what the reality is. But, you know, the good thing is that the seller pays for it. You don't have to. You just have to worry about your down payment and, you know, the inspection and the appraisal. Okay? Now, builders, they typically range around 4%. You know, they have a little extra fees here. But what I want you to know, Nicole, is that some builders will pay some of their closing costs, and there's some builders that'll pay like 90% of it. For example, Nicole, I have a great relationship with the Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
They will typically pay anywhere from 10 to 11K in closing costs. And that might leave you with maybe $2,000 out of pocket. So instead of 21K, it would be 12K plus the 2K, it means 14K. Would you be ready for that, Nicole?
Yes. That'd be great.
So at this point, if there was any concern with them with 21K, now I'm saying, well, listen, I know how to reduce this. We just gotta go to DRN,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta find a home you like at DRN, at the location you want it. I've also minimized the risk of the inspection, and all we have to do is worry about the appraisal and when it's closing. I just saved us a lot of time in looking at houses. I still might take them to look at a couple of resales, but let's go to DRN.
Mm-hmm.
And some personalities that are buyers are like, dude, I don't even wanna waste time, let's just go to DRN.
Right. What about, because now we have this new Hometowns Heroes,
The new down payment assistance program.
right, would that qualify for both scenarios, or how does?
It would potentially help them with the down payment and the closing costs. Yeah.
And it just varies on a case-to-case basis?
Yes.
Okay.
So here's a question that comes up about down payment assistance. Jose, do I still need to give a deposit money? Yes, you do.
Okay.
Because the down payment assistance program, they're not gonna provide you your deposit money. You have to have that still out of pocket. So here's what happens a lot of times as we're nearing the end. If you notice how messy it is, number one.
Mm-hmm.
But if you notice, for me personally, when I'm handwriting it like this, it's almost like a customized experience that I did for them,
Right.
for their situation. Okay? There's not really what's good or what's bad. It's just something that I like to do.
Okay.
For years I've done this. Years. Typically what happens is they'll ask me, Jose, so you're telling us that new home is the better option? And I'll say, I'll look at them and I'll probably shrug my shoulders and I'll say, I like new homes, but you're the one who just said that, not me, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll probably laugh. And I'll say to them, listen, yes, new homes is a good way to go, but ultimately, I want you to discover both. And I want you to trust your instincts about where you should be after you discover both. You see, I'm not robbing them of their experience,
Right.
even though I probably know the solution. I still know they need to go through that experience themselves for them to have peace of mind. And then typically this is when they'll ask me for the sloppy piece of paper after I'm done. And I'll say, here you go. And then at that point, we're done at that point. I'll say, did you guys have any questions? And a lot of times what people will say will be like, no, that was like thorough. This is exactly what we needed. This is, I've never experienced this before. Like, I never had any realtor do this with me.
Right.
They basically told me that they're gonna work with me. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
a lot of things occurred as we're hitting this part at the end of the part 2 of this video. Is part 1 was about them, communication, about the type of house they want, how ready they are to make a decision, putting them in different scenarios. And then I took that information and I entered part 2, which is what happens when you go under contract. And what's happening is that they're receiving information, they're visually already putting themselves in a house based on what I'm sharing with them. And that whole time they're observing me. And they're probably thinking to themselves, I'm probably gonna remember 70% of this. But I am gonna remember how Jose made me feel this whole time. So what happened here in the second part of this consultation is what you said, Nicole. I made them feel safe. I had the opportunity to give them different circumstances and share with them what market conditions look like. My consultation is different in these past 2-3 weeks of June, and the date of this video is June 2022. May, April, the market conditions and how I would educate them will be slightly different than it is now.
Gotcha.
Okay? So I got the opportunity to share with them these steps and how it aligns with market conditions. And I also had the opportunity here to talk to them about my team members and why having a team of specialists is important. Availability, communication, protect your deposit money, red carpet treatment. I've pretty much put it in their head that you probably don't want to do business with anybody else. If you notice, none of this appointment was really about, this is me, this is how many sales we've done.
Right.
None of that had to do with any of it. It had to do with everything about them. When I'm finished, this is the opportunity where I say to them, hey guys, did you guys find this helpful? Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm so awesome to hear that. Well listen, it sounds like we're ready to go. The next stage of what we're gonna do in this process is actually get you pre-approved. This is if they haven't gotten pre-approved.
Okay.
I'm gonna get you pre-approved, so we can start the process, and then we'll start looking at houses and actually start going through some of this experience together. And I'm gonna help you discover what's important for you guys and what's the right place to go. Okay. With that said, this is the time where, before we get into these following steps, is it okay for me to ask your hand, your marriage in hand or whatever, would you like us to be your exclusive team to help you out through this process?
Yes.
At this point, they're just like, yeah, hello, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear that. And then I'll have a form or something to sign. Okay? You and I, Nicole, you and I, we have this transaction fee that we charge.
Right.
This is also an opportunity for me to say, listen guys, I'm glad to hear that. Here's a form. I also want you to know in this form, aside from you having a fiduciary relationship with us and us vice versa to you, we do have a team transaction fee of this dollar amount. I want you to know that this is not charged to you at any point if you don't close. We're not collecting this money from you right now or at any time during this process. We're only going to charge this fee if we get you to the closing table successfully in the home that you wanted. Because at that point, there's no commitment. There's no turnout to the money. We're not telling them we need your money now. We're telling them when we do our job,
Mm-hmm.
this is when we're going to ask you for the transaction fee at closing. And I've already built a bunch of value, making them feel safe, doing something that they alone told me no one has ever done with them. Okay?
Yep.
All right, guys. Hope everybody enjoyed the video.